It's a high-tech conversation
and a low-tech topic.
live on the World Wide Web via Zoom. Bench Talk 101.
Welcome everybody to this week's Bench Talk 101. We've been going for this is the 28th week now. And the purpose of all of this was to be able to support each other during the lockdown, so that we can share, good practice, we can share skills, we can share experiences, we can share knowledge that we would have done in most days, at shows or sort of going around to people's places and stuff. In England, we're now back in lockdown. We're now in our second week of lockdown. And we've got 2 more weeks to go, and hopefully after that the government can relax it, and it means that we can then get out and do stuff again. So rather, sort of less from me. We've got a lot of new people on tonight. The best version for you guys is that, because obviously you're new to get to know this, is that if you can, your best view is to go to the top right corner and click on speaker view. So that will now show probably me in full, and keep it on there. If you keep yourselves muted, and what will happen then is Megan will give her talk, and then after the talk we will then ask for questions that you can put in the chat. So you just put your name in the chat, and then we call upon those people to ask Megan. So that's all from me. Over to you, Derek, to introduce our guest speaker.
Lovely. Thanks, Geoffrey. Megan. So our speaker tonight is what we might call over here in dear old Blighty, a good all-rounder. Professional woodworker, freelance editor, author, teacher, Shakespearean scholar, and, as I hope we'll discover later on this evening, a connoisseur of quality high-octane liquor. Most importantly, though, it's a role that few of us are worthy of, and it's one that I suspect she's least comfortable with, and that's as a mentor to probably thousands of woodworkers worldwide. That's quite an achievement when you think about it for someone that very nearly didn't take the woodwork option. But rather than subject her to too much torture in my intro, I'm going to pass the baton over to Megan so she can fill us in on her past, present and future, and bourbon and cats and woodworking, and who knows, we might even go in that order. So over to you, Megan.
I have to wait for Chris to quit screwing. That sounded bad. You are loud, yes. Do you mind? Sorry. I had to kick Chris out of his own shop for a few minutes. So I actually didn't hear everything you said, Derek, because there was a screw gun in the background. Did you want me to start my presentation or?
Yes, go ahead. I can send this to you to proofread later on. You can mark it out of 10. That's for me. I'm used to that.
No, I don't have time for that. Also, I should say I just pulled this presentation together, so it is unpracticed and might go terribly, but we'll see. I'm working on a book on Dutch tool chests, and I was starting out by building the chests, and then they asked me to come on, so I threw together basically a really brief history of Dutch tool chests. So for those of you who don't know what a Dutch tool chest is, that is one. That's the one I'm working on right now. Actually, it's not. That one's almost done. The one I'm working on right now has my computer sitting on it as I'm talking to you. So I'm going to try to share my screen now, if Geoffrey will help me work that out. And then I will, can you all see that?
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Except that that's not the first slide, so that's no good. Okay, Dutch tool chests, there we go. So this first one is folio 163 from Die Hausbücher, forgive my German accent or lack thereof. It's approximately 1425. It's the house book. It shows known craftspeople doing their crafts. And you can see over in the corner, there is what looks like a Dutch tool chest. I'm not positive it is, but I'm just going to say that it is, because that is the earliest one that I've found so far, about 1425. And what makes it a quote Dutch tool chest is the slant on the lid. And what that does theoretically is protect it from the weather so that rain and water can fall off of it. Also so that you can't pile stuff on top of it so that you can still get inside your chest. That's important. I don't know about you guys, but if there's a large flat surface, I'm going to cover it up with stuff. And around here, a cat is going to sit on it. So the angled ones work out pretty well. And this is Weirix 1580, I believe. And Chris has shown this drawing a lot because that's one of the earlier workbenches he's found. But if we look down in the lower corner there, you can see tucked behind the witch's broom, which is kind of perfect for me, what might also be a Dutch tool chest. Again, just sort of speculating, but odds are pretty good that that's what it is. You can see the slant lid on it and the single hasp there holding it together. And again, this is somewhere around the neighborhood of, 1580 to 1600, not entirely sure. This one is from Gerrit van de Ster's 4 Centuries of Dutch Planemakers. And this was recovered from the wreck of a boat that I cannot pronounce, Shurak, something like that. And that is also from about 1590. And this one's really interesting. It's much smaller than the ones I'm building here or some of the other ones that we'll see. But the what's interesting about it is that you can actually see the tools that were found inside it. And again, with the slant lid, which seems to be the connection between all of these. That is the Vasa tool chest that was recovered. It's probably pre-1590 because that's, you know, when the Vasa was launched. I'm sorry, 1620, because the Vasa was built between 1626 and 1628. It was recovered in 1961. So that's the tool chest that was in the ship, and that is in the museum in Stockholm. That looks like the last one we just saw, but it's a little bit more intact. This one is in the Frisian Museum. It's 1696. You've got the carved initials PD on the lid of it, and then the date, 1696. So that one, pretty sure the date's right on that. This one looks a little smaller. I don't know what size this is, and sorry about the watermarking. I illegally downloaded this. But there's a handle on top of this one. So that leads me to believe that it's a little bit smaller and it's something you can lift up and carry with you with one hand. Yeah, that's my best guess. Again, just now looking at some of these, downloaded them this morning. This one is one of them, or probably the most famous one among them. Maybe the Vasa is. This is the Steenland chest. It was featured in Jim Tolpin's book on toolboxes, and this is also the one that Chris was pretty much copying when he built the one for Popular Woodworking magazine in 2013. I think that was in the October 2013 issue. And this came over to the US from Amsterdam, which is why we call them a Dutch tool chest. And that happened in the late 19th century. But Jim Tolpin posits in his book that it was actually a few generations older. And it just sold at a Martin Donnelly auction a couple of months back. And I think the price they were thinking it would sell for was at least $2,500. It unfortunately sold for the owner, sold for significantly less than that. And if I had known that, I might have put in a bid, but I thought there was no way I could possibly afford this. Turns out I almost could afford this. And there's the interior of it. Oh, that's Chris coming in the door. Scared me. And this one is, again, at the Frisian Museum. Excuse me. It's I think it's Johannes Annis Cornell's chest from 1850. And you can see here it's a little bit larger than the earlier Dutch ones we were looking at. Is this one in 4 Centuries? No, sorry. That one's in 4 Centuries of Dutch Planemakers. Gerrit van der Ster, the author, drew that one. Excuse me. And it is unclear to me, because I did not have time to read it very carefully, if this is a drawing of his own chest or one that was in his family. But this is the first one that we're seeing interior bits on. We've got the saw rack on the top lid. That we're seeing all the interior bits on. We've got the saw rack on the top lid. Being the cat is down on the floor, but he can't jump on the bench, so I can't show him to you right now. There's a little till over in the left side. We've got slots in the back for tools and the drawers underneath. This one, I have now lost my place because I was looking at the cat. All right, this is a late 19th century tool chest that I downloaded from, I don't remember whose site, stole this one too. This is what happens when you put things together at the last minute. I will, of course, be sourcing these. Hi. I'm not sure if they can see you or not. It might just be the presentation. Can you see the cat? Nope. Okay, well, we'll bring him back later. Okay. Again, I will source these better when I'm putting them into my book late this year or early next year. And this is one that a lot of people have probably seen. It is the what we call the White Star chest, and this is in Roy Underhill's shop, which is why I have a lot of pictures of it, because Chris took pictures when he was there. See the interior. There's an interior detail, so you can see the tills in the back. I particularly like the hinges on this one. If I could blacksmith, I would make hinges like this for my own, but I'm using Horton Brass's one instead, which are also gorgeous. And one of the first places, I think the first place, but I can't ask him because he left the room, that Chris saw this chest was in Maurice Pommier's book, Grandpa's Workshop. And because he wrote about it and Chris wrote about it in 2012 before this book. Nope, I've got that backwards. Nope, can't remember. I think the book in French maybe came out in 2012. I don't know. Anyway, I will know. This is the chest with all of the tools laid out in front of it, and you can see the drop lid on it. So this is very much like the ones that I'm building and that Chris has built, and that hundreds of people around, thousands of people probably around the world have built. One of the things I'll be doing in the book, so if you guys have built one, let me know. I'm going to be featuring some interesting interiors from some readers. So if you have built one and have some clever ways to store things, let me know. I'd love to see pictures because I'm going to have a gallery in the back so that I can, because I can only build so many of these before I get totally bored. And I've probably built, I don't know, 40 of them in the last 3 years. And I don't really want to build 40 more. So if I can feature interior solutions that other people have come up with, I think that's fun for everyone. So if you have some, send them in to me. So this one is Hellier Smith. And then I just threw another one in here. His saw, the way he's done his saw till on the lid. This is Gavin Sykes. Plus he's got a slide out drawer at the bottom instead of just the drop front. Just a little overview of a few that I've collected so far. And this is the one that showed up in Pop Woodworking. This is the one that we still have in our shop here. It's over in the corner. I can show you details of it if you want. That is it open. You can see that it's sort of our overflow tool chest now. It has all of the stuff that we don't use very often, some corner clamps, extra chisels, things like that. We do tend to use this more when we're able to teach classes because we keep extra tools around for people to use, but right now it's a non-issue. There it is on the floor. You can see my ATC Anarchist tool chest in the background there. Because of the foreshortening, the Dutch tool chest looks significantly larger than it actually is. It's about half the size probably of the Anarchist tool chest, but you can fit inside of it, you know, a good most of the tools you would use, at least starting out for most furniture building. It doesn't hold as much as the ATC, but where it's a little bit more efficient is there's not as much empty floor space, empty airspace above the floor. So it actually can make better use of the space than the larger ATC can. And if you don't have enough room, you can see also in this picture the rolling cart that Chris built for it. And I'm going to be putting several of those, rollabout solutions and expanding solutions in the book as well. I'm still coming up with some other designs for that. I'm not particularly fond of this design actually, because as you can see in the first picture, the tool chest proper sits on top of the bottom one. And to get to that bottom one, you have to lift the top one off, and it's pretty heavy when it's full of stuff because you have to be able to pull the catch out of the top of that bottom one to get into it. So I'd like to come up with a locking solution, and of course it can be on hinges with a hasp. So I'll show a couple different versions of that as well. And those are two old ones. I think one's, by old I mean like probably 3 years ago I built those. One's in poplar, one's in pine. If you read my last blog on fine woodworking, you know that I infinitely prefer pine for just about everything shop related, especially tool chests though, and especially tool chests that you're going to pick up and carry around, because they are a lot lighter that way. The tools are heavy enough. I don't really need to add extra weight from the wood, and poplar does add a significant amount of extra weight compared to the pine. Pine is not as strong, but it's certainly strong enough for a tool chest. Also for a bench, preferably southern yellow pine. Anyway, that's a early one that I built right after I left Popwood, probably late 2017, maybe early 2018. There it is, open without the interior outfitted, again out of poplar. The hinges there are mass produced by Lee Valley. Well, they're sold by Lee Valley, and they're inexpensive. They're fairly easy to buy without breaking the bank, as opposed to the hand forged stuff that was on Chris's chest and some of what I'll be using on the newer chest that I'm making now. That was my travel chest. And this one is actually a little bit narrower, because the size of the thing is actually based on the size of a number 8 plane. I use a number 7 for my jointer plane, so I made this one about 3 to 4 inches more narrow, because it's easier then for me to get my arms around it to pick it up. The point of that is that you should make it to fit your own kit of tools. It doesn't need to fit the plan exactly. Think of the plans as a starting point, and then the bottom section is sized top to bottom to fit molding planes on end. So again, everything in this is sort of sized to fit the tool set. You can see there's just enough room at the top of the tool rack in the back to fit my tallest tools, which appears to be, well, a couple chisels, a screwdriver, and my 6-inch sterret dividers. They stick up pretty far. I could, of course, store those some other way, but that's what I built it for. And those are the two I'm working on now. The one that is behind me is the one that's closed up on the right there. That is the hardware, not including the handles, that Horton Brasses is going to put together as a kit. The latch and the hand forged hinges there. And Chris put them on the inside of the chest in his article years ago. I like this hardware so much that I think I'm going to put it on the outside just because it looks cool. So, and that is it, really. Told you it was really quick, really thrown together at the last minute, but just a brief overview of some forms in history. And if anyone knows of any older ones, do let me know, because I'm on the lookout. And that's really all I got at short notice. So,
Megan, that's okay. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And we've now got lots of time for questions, which is what why everybody's here, because they want to quiz you. They want to quiz you. Why have you got this passion for Dutch tool chests, and you know, the keenness of making so many? You said 40 in the last 3 years. That's,
it's from teaching classes.
I was going to say some going. I think one of your comments that you made as well was, you know, about the photographs. So some of our members might have made the Dutch tool chest and the interior. So what's the kind of time scale? When are you looking for the pictures and images?
Oh, anytime, really. I'm pretty easy to find online. If you just look me up, you'll find one of 17 emails for me, I think. Easy to find on Lost Art Press in particular, or my own site, Rude Mechanicals Press. But my goal is to have everything finished by the end of March 2021 at the absolute latest. So before then would be great.
Same.
And I need high resolution, you know, 300 DPI at least 5:7, which I'm going to put in a blog post at some point in the near future, so that all those specs are out there. And I'll explain what those words meant too, if you don't know.
I'm sure there's quite a few of us that would like to submit some pictures.
That would be great.
To be included.
With full credit, of course. Right?
Oh, brilliant. So we'll go on to questions now then. Go to gallery view and just allow people to unmute themselves. So the first one up is Matthias. Are you able to unmute?
Yep, there we go. Thank you, Geoffrey. And thank you very much, Megan. That was very interesting and a nice teaser taster, I think, of what is going to be in your book. You mentioned sort of in passing towards the end of your speech, your preference for pine for building chests. And I've read a recent blog post of yours as well, where you said the same in more detail. And it makes a lot of sense. However, the problem with recommending wood by trade name tends to be that it's quite local in a way. You have one market for timber over in the US with stuff that's easy to find in certain parts of the US, difficult in other parts, but can be substituted. Will you, so my question, what I'm leading up to, are you planning to include some sort of table of correspondence between suitable species, not necessarily all over the world, but at least in as many parts as possible?
I'm going to try, and I'll probably ask people in different regions, like yourself, if I got it right, because some of that will be research online and maybe using Richard Jones's book on timber. I'm hoping I can find some analogs between what we have here and what I typically use and what's available in other places. Although I will say that this is sugar pine, and it's from California, which is about 2,200 miles from where I'm sitting right now. Yeah. So you can get it. And of course, it's all on the same continent and you can drive it across. So a little easier.
Well, I couldn't quite drive to California. I'm in Belgium, so that would be
right. That'd be problematic. Oh, I didn't drive to get this. They brought it here. Let me be clear.
But what I was also wondering then was, because it's also quite a few North American species are not easily available over here, but you can find them without too much trouble, and the pines tend to be not too expensive anyway, even if they're imported. But the problem is also the common names, the trade names. So are you planning to include scientific names, species names, so that one actually knows sort of, when I say sugar pine, I mean this, or this, or
Pinus sweetiana, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be doing that. Yeah.
Great. Because that's one thing that bothers me a lot when I read articles in woodworking magazines. The authors will use the common names, and it can be quite difficult if they make a good point about using a particular wood, and you want to try to repeat it. It can be quite difficult to figure out what is it they are actually using and calling by that name.
Well, duly noted, and I will. I was planning on doing the Latin names, but I'll make sure that I do.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. I'll
certainly.
The next person, come on.
There you go, Megan. You've been told.
I have.
Chester's...
The problem is there's always spelling mistakes in those darn Latin names. That's because there's, if you go online, there's like 5 different ways to spell them. So, Matthias, I will do that, but you can't make fun of my spelling. So that's
lovely. Chester, can you hear me, Chester? Yeah. You're muted, Chester.
This is exciting. I see all these faces that I know from Instagram and stuff. So this is fun. Hi, Tiago.
That was very nice. That was a very nice presentation. And
thanks.
Very interesting chests. I have a couple of questions for you. One is that I'm noticing on the chest that you've just built or are near completion behind you are what appears to me to be black dots. Are those wrought nails? Are they screws? Are they plugs? Hard to say.
They are nails. Those are the Riviere nails. You can use screws too, but I just like the way that the nails look, and they look and that is actually one of the reasons I'm going to be putting the hardware on the outside, because it just looks cool with the black. But this one actually already has butt hinges in it. So I'm going to build a couple of different forms of the lid, and on one of the other forms, I'll use that hardware for it. But yeah, you can use screws too, but I tend to, nope, that's me, not the chest, sorry. That's a different chest, sorry. Yeah, I tend to use nails instead of the screws. The screws are good because then you can, you know, replace stuff if you need to. That's a double-sized one. And screws is what Chris used in the original one. Either one works, it doesn't matter. So.
Okay, I just noticed that the historical ones didn't appear to have any hardware on those sides particularly. And
Not
I was wondering if those
necessarily.
were dovetailed or anything, or if anybody's examined what the historical.
A lot of them are just nailed together, actually. But there's dovetails at the bottom.
Saw that.
Doing a
yeah.
terrible job at the bottom. And that's actually why this is a really good project, especially for beginners, because it only has a few dovetails and they're in a place where you can't actually see them that much. And as I often say, bad dovetails will still stay together. Bad mortise and tenons will not. So this is a good place to practice your dovetails. You also get good practice doing, bad sunlight. Anyway, these are the shelves here are in dados. So you get to hand cut some dados. You can cut the angles here at the top and plane the match plane those. There's just a lot of hand tool lessons in here. But it's held together mostly with nails. And so even if your dovetails are bad, the nails will help hold things together. So that's
They're reminiscent to me of the old sugar chests. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but and I wondered, because of that, was there a reason why that you haven't included, or historically it was not included, to have a drawer, to have the bottom area a pull-out drawer, so that you don't have to lift a lid sort of thing. And then I'll just leave you with one last thing, and won't bother you, but you put I keep hearing the reference to a Dutch chests, and I'm wondering, are you just calling them Dutch chests because of the one that was found, or are they really that distinctively different than, say, a German one or a Scandinavian one, or that sort of thing?
Well, I hope to be able to give you a more authoritative answer to that with evidence in a few months. But at the moment, the reason I call them Dutch tool chests is because that's what Chris called them. And he called them that because the Steenland chest, which was the first one that we know of, pictured in Tulpen's book, came from Amsterdam. And there is one on the Vasa that's similar shape. There's the other ones that were uncovered. So clearly it was something in that area of the world. There is, I suppose, I'm trying to think. There's almost certainly similar ones in other cultures as well. But if you look at the English chests, most of those that we know of are square. So that didn't make it over to England. You look at the Dutch plains. So there's just a lot of woodworking coming out of that area that we have some evidence for. Maybe I'll find they should be called something different, but probably not, because it's too good of a Google term now, so I'm not going to change it. So.
And the lower portion, as far as a drawer versus a planked door that you need to lift out.
Well, I think the reason it's got that the planked thing is because it keeps it locked, because you have to pull that stick out to drop the front of it there. Wow. I'm going to drop it on the ground. Can't do that. Haven't taken the photograph yet. If you just had a drawer, it would probably be harder to keep it locked. So I think that's why. That said, I am going to try to show a lot of different options for the interior fittings, not only with the ones I'm doing, both in the top and in the bottom section, but then also in the ones that I'm going to ask readers to send in. So there will certainly be some with drawers down there, both inside the lower portion and ones that you can pull out without taking that lower portion off. Or lower
very interesting,
off,
very interesting study. I'm sure it's going to be a really great book. I'll look forward to seeing it.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. Over to Mitch. Mitch has got the next question.
Hi, Megan. Thank you for a very interesting talk. I'm completely new, really, to Dutch tool chests, and I was just wondering about the difference between the the unpainted and painted, and whether there was a particular period in time where one switched to the other, or whether it's completely random?
I don't know the answer to that yet, I'm afraid. Most of the ones I've seen that are post 1800 are painted. The only pictures I've seen of older ones are black and white, so I don't know if they're painted. So I'm hoping to get some help from people who are overseas to be able to go to the museum and tell me that, because I can't tell. But you know, that said, paint is going to protect things better, and only on the outside. I would never paint the inside of a tool chest. Why would you? Too much trouble. I suspect that there's paint on most of them, but I don't know that for sure. So Chris is nodding his head. Yes, there is paint on most of them over there. So yes, there's paint.
Intricately carved ones I saw at the beginning of your talk. Did all that carving sort of disappear when painted ones came in, or is painted ones quite plain?
I've seen some really fancy painted ones as well. Like Peter Follensby did a really fun one. We were at a Lee Nielsen show a few years back. Chris built the chest, I painted it, and then Peter came along and did 17th century carving on it. And so, you know, there's all sorts of options. Most of the ones I've seen are not carved, they are just painted. So I think the carving one might have been somebody showing off, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And finally, with the sloped top, is the tool arrangement in there taking up all that space of the bevel there, or is that a bit of wasted space?
It does take up the, if I can carry you over here and show you the old one, you can see, or the one that we have that's, you know, been used a long time. This would be so much easier on my phone. I don't think I can turn the, so do you see how things come up toward the top there? And then you can see down inside it. So that does actually show, I think, how the interior is actually more efficient than, say, here, Chris's ATC is open, mine is not, so I will show you that. So in the ATC, you have a lot of airspace here.
Yeah.
And there's really not much you can do with that. So I think with the Dutch tool chest, you actually get a more efficient use of the space. That said, there is less space to make use of. So it's a toss up.
Super. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I was muted. Sorry, I'm now unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
Derek, you've got a question to ask.
I have, yes. Hi, Megan. Chester kind of stole my question, really, as is often the case. He's a bit quicker on the keyboards than I am. But it was a question that relates to the name Dutch tool chest. I'm kind of guessing that when we call it a Dutch, we're sort of referring to the lowlands. I mean, is there any evidence that they showed up in places, you know, sort of North Africa or sort of further afield, or Italy or Spain and places like that?
Again, you just asked me to do this yesterday. I don't know yet.
Oh, what have you been doing?
I know. Give me a month or two and hopefully I'll have a better answer for you. I have not seen them. Most of the ones I've seen are either in the US and they were brought over from the Netherlands, that area. Most of the ones in museums are also in that part of the world. And I do not know of any at this point that are from Africa or what have you.
Yeah, it's interesting also that if they are from that part of Europe, that when the sort of mass migration of Huguenots came over to England, they brought an awful lot of their trades, but it seems maybe they left their Dutch tool chests behind, had to flee in a hurry. If they haven't caught on over here, you would have expected them to. And it's just odd that they haven't in big numbers, when perhaps it was just the English tool chest was very well established by then.
It was, the English tool chest was fairly well established fairly early on, but look at the hand planes, for example. Like Dutch hand planes did show up a lot in England and, well, what was England at the time, especially not the UK. And I'm of Irish descent, so I should be very careful here. In England, you see Dutch style planes in older paintings and misericords and stuff, but you know, after, I'm just throwing a number out there, 1650, 1700, you start to see the more square shape of plane that, the wooden plane that we on this side of the world are all familiar with. So there's probably some correlation between the timing on the tools changing over and the tool chest as well, but I don't know for sure. But if you do look at old caskets and other box forms in England in the 16th, 15th century, you do actually see a lot of slant lid things. So I'm still investigating that and trying to investigate how they speak to one another, if you will, but I don't know for sure yet. So.
Cool. My other question, when it's safe to do so, are we going to be able to persuade you to come over and teach a Dutch tool chest class?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm happy.
And if I can do one in Ireland and Scotland too, that would be fabulous.
I'm sure we could arrange for that.
It is one of my favorite parts of the world. So.
Okay. All right. Lovely. Thanks, Megan.
Brilliant. Good ask as well there, Derek. We'll hopefully see you next year then, Megan.
Oh, I sure hope so. I just sent in to get my passport renewed. So fingers crossed I can actually use it.
So Matthias has got a second question.
Maybe.
Oh, he's muted. And I don't read lips.
There we go.
Good.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Yeah, a further comment on the Dutch thingamabob, or rather the connection, the chest you mentioned from the Vasa. I'm originally Swedish, so it is not.
Well, I hope I haven't offended you and your country.
No, not at all. In no way whatsoever. Oh no, good grief, no. No, what I was going to say, two things, namely that form of tool chest is not something I would recognize. It's not the kind of chest I would have expected to see in my grandfather's workshop. It's not the kind of thing I would expect to see in a workshop in Scandinavia. So it's not what I would have thought of as classic form there. Rather, we would have used, to the extent that we did use tool chests, rather some form of flat-lidded chest, I'd say, or round-lidded, because round-lidded chest forms are quite common in Scandinavia, both for storing textiles and various other stuff. But specifically about the Vasa, as I'm sure you're aware, the master shipwright of that build was a Dutchman, and quite a number of the shipwrights on the build were also Dutch. So that there was a tool chest on board that sank with the Vasa, and that was a Dutch form may have a very natural explanation, as it were.
Yeah. To be fair, though, yes, I'm sure it does. But you said you don't typically see this form in your grandparents' shop, right?
No.
That doesn't surprise me because I had not seen this form before. And if you start scouring the internet, nobody is seeing much of it until Chris wrote about it for Popwood. So I think that it's just had more of a resurgence since 2013. And the only reason, again, that we're calling it Dutch is because of the Steenland. And we know that it came from Amsterdam. So it may be a misnomer, and I should call it a slant-lid tool chest. But again, too good of an SEO term at this point.
I suspect that boat sailed several years ago.
I think it did, yeah. But I will probably, well, not probably, I will be explaining or discussing all of that, because you're right. Yeah.
And of course, it's interesting. I mean, if Pommier's book shows it in a French context, it would not be, and again, also, I mean, parts of northern France were originally part of the Netherlands, of the lowlands.
Right.
They still even speak a dialect of Dutch in the northwesternmost corner of France, around Lille.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Je parle un peu.
Yeah,
but not that kind, right?
So it's not surprising. I mean, it's the same as with the big timber framed workbenches. You get them both in France and in the lowlands.
Well, Jane might be able to tell us if they're in France. I don't know if she's seen them or not, but she lives there. She doesn't know. She says she doesn't know.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Sure.
I don't know, but I'll have a look.
Okay, thank you. If you find any, let me know.
I will indeed, yes.
Thank you.
A very English accent there in France.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been here 20 years. I've got quite a good French accent too.
I would imagine. I do not. From Kentucky, so.
So we've got one of our regulars on here is Barbie Woodshop. I don't know if
Yes.
you on Instagram, but obviously for reasons we all know, Barbie can't ask the question, but she's asked it in the chat, so I'll read it out for you. So I've got a couple of questions there. So she's asking, she or he or whatever it is, what's your preferred lid style, breadboard or something more simple?
When I'm teaching, my preferred form is something more simple because we do this in 2 or at most 3 days typically, and there just isn't enough time at the end to do a breadboard end by hand, especially if people are beginners. So if I'm teaching it, I'm usually doing a just flat lid with some kind of a batten either on the inside here or on the outside here. But if I'm building it for myself, I do prefer the breadboard end just because because it's showing off. That's all, really. They all work. So.
Lovely. The other question that she's asking is, do you think a saw can bend permanently if you have it on the lid so that it is supported only by the handle and the tip of the blade?
I do, because that's how I have my panel saws stored on my the lid of my ATC at home. So there's like just a slight bend to it right at the end, but it doesn't really bother me in the use of it. So I haven't found it to be a problem. And we're talking really, really slight. So
there we go. Hopefully that's answered Barbie's questions. So we'll go back one now. Jeremy. Jeremy's up next. I'm trying to see you, Jeremy. Where are you? Is that helping, Jeremy? Can you?
Yeah, there we go. Now you've unmuted me. Great. My question is if you can speak a little bit towards the weather tightness and or dust sealing capacities, comparing the anarchist tool chest English style with the slant lid style that you're talking about. Is there, a
don't you
preferred
have the
winner?
cool lid on yours that opens up backward?
I do have an interesting lid. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I was like, I know I've seen that lid before. You need to send me a picture.
I will.
There is not technically what you would call a dust seal on the Dutch tool chest, but if you were to put the batten on the outside here, and you could extend the lid here, and you could put one underneath, as long as you did it tight to the case and just left a little bit of room, you would have approximately the same amount. Oh, my locks are on my tool chest. The same amount of protection as you get from the ATC, because there's nothing around the back of it here. That's just open. Well, not open, but that's a flush fit with the lid. So really, you could make it have a Dutch seal on it if you wanted to. That's what I like about this form. It's really easy to move it around and change things.
I'd be curious to see if there's any historical difference associated with that being the slant lid being more of a carpenter's tool, which is like weather suited, shedding water more than the English tool chest might be more susceptible to water pooling or problems that way. Maybe, I don't know. That's something I would be curious with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
for like being
sense.
left out in the elements versus being used in the shop.
Well, to be fair, I mean, look at that thing. I could pick it up and carry it around, right? That is portable.
That's a beauty of it.
That is not terribly portable, I have to say. I mean, because I can pick up, and I'm not terribly strong, but even with most of my tools in a smaller version of the Dutch tool chest, I can pick it up and put it in the back of my car. Oh, that's another nice thing. I know these predate cars, but This tucks in really nicely if you have a hatchback. So it's kind of perfect for that too. But no, I don't think a full-size English tool chest was ever carried around on the job site. That's crazy talk. This one, yeah, very well might be. But as you say, this one can shed water because of the way that the lid is slanted, and that has been posited both by Garrett Van de Steer and by Chris. What I've also seen is people use that lid and put like a ledger across the top, like a music stand.
Yep.
So do you have that on yours? Okay.
I have that on mine, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
See, all I remember about yours is the crazy hinges that you made for it. Are you in your shop? Can you show this to people?
I can take it to my shop.
This is really crazy. He's insane. So I say that with love, right? St. Louis, is that right? I think that's where you're from.
I mean, yeah, south of Chicago in Illinois.
Oh, Chicago, sorry. Right. See, I miss seeing people in our shop, but I remember seeing people in our shop.
Whoa, boy, let's see if I can. Okay, yeah, so here's my,
behind you, yeah.
here's my lid. Boy, it just looks like it's flat in this view, but it's obviously not. Am I like tilted or something? Okay, anyway, so it tilts forward, which I have it set up to house a bunch of chisels in the front rack, but they don't fall out because they never tilt that way.
So yours is the only one I've ever seen like that. And I can see you also have the strips on the outside to help make it into a dust seal.
Yes, that was, well, kind of twofold purposes. One was the fact that it's
and to hold your hinges, sure.
It holds the hinges, yeah. And then I do have a dust or a ledge there, which I've actually, there's now 2 of these because I recently made some other ones.
I'm glad I'm not the only one like walking around the shop now.
Yeah.
So
I made another one in the same way.
You like that?
I do like the idea. I do, and I think I'm going to try on that one to put in a sawtill on that so that they will be accessible, almost like the ATC access, as opposed to like locked in there somehow.
Right,
so.
Right. Well, yours is clever. See, I remembered it. Had to be.
Thank you.
I think that's really clever. Actually, that's a really good use of the surfaces as well, and the way that angles back and keeps everything in place is very good. I think Jeremy, you're going to maybe get a few people on here copying that idea, and especially if it appears in Megan's book. I think it will.
Well, he hasn't sent me a picture, but we'll see. I think I actually have pictures. I have to find them though. So. Well, I mean, really, the exterior is one thing. It's really the interior and seeing all the different interiors that I think makes it exciting. The clever ways that people have come up with ways to make it work. So
I think Megan, he comes under that category because obviously he's got the storage on the inside that comes with it. So I think he could veer in there. So there we go. Andy Tutwell's up next. Hopefully you can.
I'm going to move to the back so that Chris can actually come out here and work some more because I've kicked him out for almost an hour now. Oh, wait, he's out in the shop, so it doesn't matter. Haha. Never mind.
You touched on this a little bit, Megan, but I just wanted to go back to what you were saying about the use of these chests. Coming at it from the English tradition, I'm familiar with the idea that tool chests got really big in the 18th and 19th centuries, especially with trades such as cabinet makers and joiners that used a lot of tools. And there was a way of working where a craftsman would own his own set of hand tools, but work at a bench in premises belonging to somebody else. So it made a lot of sense to have this big, immovable chest, too heavy to carry away, locked up at the end of each day, left behind, ready for the next morning. But where you see these smaller chests in the 15th, 16th century drawings, they must have been a whole set, but a smaller, simpler set of tools, and look as if they were used in a workshop. And then somewhere in between, we've got the third broad category of use where you're taking a small subset of your tools out to work at a customer's premises. And I think broad brush story, in England for a long time, that was a bag or basket because it was the lightest possible thing to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And only in the 20th century, with cars and vans and hand carts more, there was a similar size small chest developed, often made of lightweight plywood, like a little attaché case.
Mm-hmm.
And are you going to be sort of drawing any generalizations? Did the countries where the really old images came from, did they go on to bigger chests as their woodworking developed and the toolkit grew? Or was it a thing that immigrants out to the USA would want?
I don't know yet. That's my answer to a lot. But yeah, I have a bag like you're talking about right there. I don't know. It depends on how much room I have. At the end of the day, it's about building them and making use of them in a modern day context. But that is an interesting question, and I have not thought about it in those terms yet, but it's certainly worth considering.
It's like any topic, it expands forever.
It does, and you have to choose. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that now, and I'm going to be done. Nothing's ever perfect, but yeah, no, I'm certainly willing to consider it.
Yeah, I've been working with others on a book that focuses in on a particular trade tool chest, where it clearly was the practical answer to having your own hand tools at work. But I think these are different, aren't they? These aren't. They're too small to be that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I do think so. A lot of people can fit all of the tools that they have, hand tools that they have in this chest. I like a little more room. But really, what is that? You expand to fill the available space.
Yes. And one other thought about the sloping top. I mean, I've no idea if this is any basis in fact, or if it's just one of these nice stories that people make up. But I've often seen it said that chests with rounded tops, like the traditional sailor pirate's treasure chest, the point of the rounded top was that you couldn't stack other stuff on top of it. So if you were giving your chest to somebody else to carry for you, it would be on top of the pile, undamaged. And maybe that's part of the reason with these, or would they have not been carried about very much? That's another unknowable guess, isn't it?
It is, but I have a guess, and again, my guess is that it's slanted so that you can't put stuff on top of it to keep you from getting to the tools inside. I can't imagine putting one of these on top of something else to carry it, because it would be awfully heavy and unwieldy.
I would have to be in a ship or in a
oh, I see. Stacked as
on a cart or something.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's certainly possible.
And of course, you lose out on the convenient trestle to saw stuff on as well, don't you?
Well, that is true.
By
Yeah,
not having
that
a
is
flat
true.
top. Sorry, I didn't really want to make it any longer than you wanted it to be, but
no, that's
always room for more.
There's always room for more.
Thank you.
Okay, Graham's got his hand up. Graham,
hi there.
Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I haven't seen you in ages. Hi.
Yeah. How you doing? All right.
Good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Yeah, it's interesting listening to what other people are talking about, but I suppose myself, because I work as a joiner during the day, I've been out quite a lot recently. Sometimes I'm in the workshop, sometimes out on site, and looking at what you're making there, it seems like that practical thing that you would take with you, that you would be perhaps moving around, perhaps more on a construction site or building a house or building a boat, timber framing, whatever it might be. So yeah, it kind of makes sense from that point of view for sure. And also the weatherproofing on the top. The weather's been horrendous here recently. It's like all of my tools are getting relentlessly wet, and I almost need two sets. Ones that get a bit abused, which might live in a tool chest like that, and something a bit nicer that would always stay in the workshop.
I have 2 sets, one that I'll loan to neighbors and one that I won't. So
Pretty much, yeah. And that's my site stuff because you end up chopping through nails and all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yes. No, it's good. It's very good.
Lovely.
Yeah,
lovely.
you actually do make a living out of carrying tools around, so I'll trust you.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well, we're coming up to the hour now. There are a couple of questions that we might go through in a moment, but if we could just take a moment to say, Megan, thank you very much for stepping in last minute and doing a wonderful talk on the Dutch tool. We haven't seen much of the cat, and maybe we'll see.
No, it's he was out earlier while I was talking. Let me see if he's in the back room. You got him?
I think we've got a lot of people that are now joining us. I think they've got the time zone set up.
Here, I'm taking. For me.
There you go.
Because there you go.
And Chris as well.
And Chris.
Oh, did I get the time wrong?
I got the time wrong. It's my fault. I put it out there as 4:30, and in fact, it was 3:30 because I have degrees in English and my math absolutely sucks. So,
well, basically, Megan. Let me just take you off of the spotlight. Megan, thank you very much for doing the talk. And at this point, what we do is we raise our bench beverages. Most people hopefully have got whiskey or bourbon there in honor of you. So thank you very much. And so to Megan and to the bench.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
It's a high-tech conversation.
And a low-tech topic.
Live on the World Wide Web via Zoom. Bench Talk 101.